Hello and welcome back for another Torah Tuesday. Today we're going to finish Exodus chapter 16. Before we do, I have another announcement to make about a resource that might be great for you or for your family, for your small group, or for your church. Some of you are already aware that I've created some courses for a platform called Seminary Now. It's a streaming platform that has all kinds of great courses available from leading evangelical scholars like John Walton, Esau McCulley, Sandra Richter, Tremper Longman, so many different wonderful presenters on topics that you would get to hear about if you went to seminary. But these courses are video courses and they're made for lay people to be able to enjoy. You don't have to be super scholarly to appreciate them. If you're watching Torah Tuesday and think this is cool, you would love Seminary Now. I have a discount code that I can offer you if you're interested in trying it out. If you go to seminarynow.com/Imes, I-M-E-S, you can check out the streaming platform. It's a monthly subscription to be a member, but then you have access to all the courses. And I have courses on being God's image and on bearing God's name, both of my books with InterVarsity Press. But there's so many other great courses to take. If you use the discount code IMES25, IMES25, then that will give you 25% off a subscription. So some of you have checked it out and are really enjoying it. I'd love to hear if you decide to do that. All right, so today we're picking it up in Exodus chapter 16, starting in verse 31 through verse 36. This is the end of the chapter. We've been exploring all through this chapter the provision of manna in the wilderness, how to gather it, when to gather it, how to celebrate the Sabbath. And then the chapter ends with this sort of retrospect, looking back on the time that manna was provided. Verse 31, the house of Israel called its name manna. It was white and like coriander seed, and its taste was like wafers with fruit syrup. And Moses said, this is what Yahweh commanded. Fill the omer with it to keep for your descendants in order that they may see the bread that I fed you in the desert when I brought you out of the land of Egypt. Moses said to Aaron, take one basket and put in it a full omer of manna. Set it before Yahweh to be kept for your descendants. Just as Yahweh commanded Moses, so Aaron set it before the tablets to be kept. The Israelites ate the manna 40 years until they entered an inhabited land. The manna is what they ate until they entered the borders of the land of Canaan. Now an omer is a tenth of an ephah. All right, so this is an interesting paragraph because we have the immediate sense that a lot of time has passed. There's all sorts of things that don't quite fit the original context. First of all, the passage is written in retrospect from the perspective of those who have already entered the land of Canaan and discovered there's no manna there. So they're looking back over 40 years of wilderness wanderings. It addresses people who are unfamiliar with manna, describing what it looked like and what it tasted like. And it presumes that there's an ark in which the stone tablets are kept with the 10 Commandments written on them, and that they could put the basket of manna there beside them. But we haven't gotten to Sinai yet, and there is no ark, and there are no tablets with the 10 Commandments. So this is telling us a couple of things. First of all, that this comes way later and is written for the benefit of future generations who didn't have the provision of manna in the wilderness. But clearly, God wants these future generations to remember what he provided for those who traveled through the wilderness. So God's provision was temporary. It only lasted during the wilderness travels, but the memory was to be passed down to future generations. We also see that the law, there's a connection here because we have the basket of manna being placed next to the 10 Commandments, which tells us these belong together. The law is for the people God redeemed and the people for whom he provided in the wilderness. This is not just God dishing out commands to anybody who walks by. This is God specifically calling a particular people into covenant with himself and providing for them. Now, a little bit about the manna itself. We're told that it was like coriander. It wasn't white like coriander. It was white and like coriander. We still have to answer the question, did it look like coriander? Did it taste like coriander? Was it a similar color, shape, texture? Like what made it similar? And it doesn't say. But interestingly, the word for coriander in Hebrew is gad or gad, which is the name of one of the tribes. And it means good fortune. So you can see this in Genesis 30, verse 11, when Gad is born, that his mother says, "How fortunate I am." So we get some more information about the manna and what it tasted like and what they did with it in Numbers chapter 11, verses 7 through 9. We learned there that it looked like bdellium. Again, we don't know if this is color, texture, how did it look like it? We learned that it came with the dew in the morning, that people ground or crushed it, and then boiled it, and then shaped it into cakes, and that it tasted like pastry. So we're getting more information about what it was like for the benefit of those who've never tasted it before. Deuteronomy chapter 8, verses 3 and 16 tells us that it was an object lesson. The manna itself was an object lesson to teach Israel humble dependence on God's provision all through their years in the wilderness. You might have noticed when I was reading my translation of the Hebrew that I did not say honey, I said fruit syrup. So the word davash can mean honey, and it's possible that that's what it's supposed to mean here, but more commonly it refers to human-produced sweetener made from fruits, so either made from dates or grapes or other sweet fruits like figs. So this is probably what they have in mind, like, oh, it seems like this pastry's been sweetened with fruit syrup, but we don't have fruit syrup, so God is just providing this naturally sweet substance. We don't know for sure what they put it in before they put it in the ark. The word that's used for the receptacle is unique. It's only occurring here in the whole Bible. So it could be a jar, could be a pot. Childs thinks that it's a basket based on an Aramaic word that sounds similar. So that's possible. We're told that they had it for 40 years in the wilderness. That's a round number, rounding up a little bit because we learn elsewhere that it was 38 years and some change. The 40 years is symbolic of a time of testing and punishment. And I think I said this in a previous video, but an omer is 2 quarts, so the equivalent of about 2 quarts of manna. And so there was supposed to be an omer per person, and they collected an omer to put in the Ark of the Covenant. The word omer only occurs in this chapter in all of the Bible. And we have lots of other chapters that talk about measurements. And so that's why our chapter ends with, now an omer is the 10th of an ephah, because clearly omer is a unit of measurement that falls out of use. Maybe it's what they had in Egypt and how they measured things in Egypt, but the next generation doesn't use that measurement anymore. So this tells us 2 things. First of all, that the story of the manna is ancient. It's not invented in a later time to sort of make up something that God did for the people in the wilderness, sort of like a tall tale that you would tell around the fire. Because if you told a tall tale, you wouldn't make up a unit of measurement that no longer exists. So it tells us something about the ancient origins of the story, but also that it's being written down and included much later in history when nobody knows what an omer is anymore and you have to tell them. So this might be the first Torah Tuesday video where we've touched on the question of authorship. I don't remember talking about it before. Many people presume that Moses wrote Exodus, and that is the traditional view, that Moses wrote all of the Torah, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. However, the text itself does not claim that. The Torah does not indicate who wrote it. There are a few moments in Exodus where God tells Moses to write something down, and he does. So that would be fragments of text, but we don't have a scene where he sits down to write the whole thing. And he couldn't possibly have written the ending of chapter 16 because it's told from their perspective of those who are in Canaan after the manna ceased to be provided. and Moses was dead by then. So we have at least a clue that there were other people involved in the production of this text and that it reflects a later time period. However, that doesn't mean it was all just invented later and it's not reliable. As I've tried to show, even the use of a unit of measurement that comes from ancient times that needs to be explained tells us this is a really old story that was passed down and then translated for a new generation. So I hope that's interesting to you. Next week, we'll pick it up with Exodus chapter 17. Have a great week.